Can you hear me, Ben?
I can, yeah.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody who's here. Thanks for coming. I'm going to give about 2 more minutes for people to join the call, and then we'll get started with the presentation. Good morning, everyone. Again, thanks for being here. It's 10:02. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the presentation. This is the pre-proposal conference for the City of Tucson's home program, homeownership development, specifically requesting proposals from community development housing organizations, which will be referred to throughout as CHDO. I am Ben Carpenter. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the Community Services Project Supervisor for the home program at the City of Tucson. And joining me is also Ray. Ray, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Ray Kiwis, Community Services Project Manager. My pronouns are he, him. Thank you for being here today.
Also with us are Jason Thorpe and Austin Puka from the city. Just a few housekeeping items. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please first log out and log back in. If you're still having problems, please let us know. We'll try to figure out what's wrong. Please stay muted throughout the presentation. We're going to hold time for questions and answers at the end of the session. So please use the Q&A function in Zoom to submit your questions, and then we'll be able to track those and get good answers. If there are questions that we can't answer today in the meeting, we'll make sure to get those answered and posted to our website. We'll have a Q&A that posts every Monday. And these slides will be up on our p-chip website, hopefully by the end of the week. So as a note, this solicitation only applies to organizations that currently are or can be certified as a community housing development organization at the time of the application. So what we're going to go over today is an overview of the RFP, CHDO definitions, what they are and what thresholds they have to meet by HUD regulations, the eligible activities for type of property and costs that the funding can be used for, affordability periods that are required, resale and recapture provisions, and we're going to kind of go over application materials in depth for both the CHDO application and the development application itself. So the city receives home entitlement funding from HUD, and 15% of that entitlement funding is required to be set aside for CHDOs. That's what this is. This is our CHDO set aside money, and $766,956 will be available through this solicitation. Applicants can request up to the full amount, and it's for the acquisition, rehabilitation, or new construction of housing for low-income home ownership. And the city reserves the right to adjust those funding levels based on project underwriting to meet the need of the project. And full home guidance can be provided in the links found in the slide. Again, the slideshow will be posted to our website, so you'll have access to it and can access those links later. The RFP is posted at the p-chip website, Call for Projects website, and the solicitation includes 3 documents: the Home CHDO Affordable Housing, Affordable Home Ownership Request for Proposals. That's the PDF file there. There's the Homeownership application itself, which is a Word document, and the CHDO certification application is also there, and that is a Word document. All those links can be found at the p-chip website. So to emphasize again, this RFP is specifically for community housing development organizations, for CHDOs. And by definition, a CHDO is a nonprofit organization that has a tax exemption ruling from the IRS. Have to have that tax exempt ruling. It's to be organized under state or local laws and is not controlled by individuals or entities seeking to derive profit or gain from the operation of the organization. So HUD requires these thresholds for a CHDO, and that is that the CHDO cannot be considered or cannot be a governmental entity, and it must exist to provide decent, affordable housing to low-income families, and that must be documented and be able to be demonstrated. A third of the board of the CHDO must be either residents of a low-income neighborhood, low-income determined residents, or elected representatives of a low-income neighborhood organization. And The CHDO must provide a formal process for low-income beneficiaries to advise the organization. So the CHDO board has to have documentation showing how they are going to accept feedback and how they are going to accept information along the way in the development process to get the input of the community. Eligible activities under this RFP are the new construction of homes for purchase by low-income families and the acquisition and rehabilitation of homes for purchase by low-income families. So we're specifically talking new construction or acquisition rehab of homes for purchase by families that can be determined to be low income in the community. And as a note here, any use of home program funds must result in the creation of housing units to be made available for home eligible low income families. So as a rule, if you're utilizing home funding, it has to result in the creation of a unit, in this case for homeownership. Property types that are eligible are single family property as in individual units, or 2 to 4 unit properties, duplexes, fourplexes, condominiums, a manufactured home that has a permanent foundation, or a co-op unit in a mutual housing project as that is recognized by as homeownership by Arizona state law. Again, any of these things, any of these uses of home funding has to result in the creation of a unit for homeownership. And as a note here, all projects must begin work within 12 months of the award, must be completed within 4 years of the award, and home assisted units must be occupied within 9 months of the completion of the project. Costs that are eligible under this solicitation are both hard costs and soft costs, acquisition of land and structure, costs for site preparation, materials and labor, improvements for accessibility if you're in acquisition of a project, compliance with lead-based regulations, and also energy-related improvements. Soft costs are also eligible: architectural, engineering, and related services, financing, transaction, surety, legal and accounting, environmental review, fees within the caps, and home buyer counseling. Subsidized units must be sold to families determined to be low income, and that's below 8% of AMI. Eligibility has to be confirmed at the time of agreement. And the units must meet the HUD purchase price limits for existing or newly constructed housing. That list is maintained at our website. There's a link here, and we get the slides up. You can go to that. It's at HCD's site, and that has the limits for purchase for housing. Keynote about that is that it will be updated in July. So likely by the time the homes that are constructed are for sale, those values will be different. You must also meet responsible lending standards, and that is listed. Those are listed in the RFP and also in our policy. And the units must conform to all state and local building codes, ordinances, and zoning requirements. All units are subject to a period of affordability, and that period of affordability is listed in the table on the slide. It begins when the deed of trust is recorded, and that period of affordability ends upon the deed of trust expiring at the end of the affordability period, the sale or refinancing of the property, or if the owner ceases to occupy as a primary residence. The affordability period will be enforced through resale, recapture provisions, as well as that deed of trust, and it's based on the level of subsidy. So if it's $40,000 or more per unit, then we're looking at a 15-year affordability period. And all units are subject to either resale or recapture. Specifically, we're talking about development here. The resale provisions will apply to investment in development of homes for home ownership. And what that means is that the original buyer, if they sell the home, they have to sell it to an income eligible buyer at an affordable price. an affordable price that will ensure fair return. And the fair return means the owner will recoup their initial personal investment, and that will be done at closing. The financing method for this solicitation will be a grant secured by a contract. And again, that affordability period will be secured through a deed restriction on the land, a deed of trust with the owner, and those will be required for each property sold, maintaining that affordability period for each individual property. And that subsidy level will be contingent on underwriting. And again, the city will reserve the right to adjust funding based on the need of the project and the requirements discovered through the underwriting process. CHDO proceeds from the award, if there are proceeds realized from the sale of the property, they will remain with the CHDO and be reinvested into the CHDO. They may be used to construct additional units of housing in the project. They may also be used as a direct subsidy to the buyer. They can be used within the project. They should be planned for in the application, and they should be noted in the sources and uses section of the application so that the proceeds projected can be evaluated for the overall cost of the project. Those proceeds cannot be used for administrative costs, and they must be reported quarterly until the funds are fully expended. So these proceeds must be used for an approved home program activity, and they must be maintained and tracked and reported back to the city on a quarterly basis. Project timelines, which I briefly mentioned earlier. The acquisition must occur within 6 months of a contract with the city. Construction has to begin within 12 months of signing that contract. All project construction must be completed within 4 years of the award or within 4 years of the contract. And the time starts at the funding commitment, not at the initial award. And then once homes are constructed, they must be sold within 9 months of the project completion. And if they're not sold, by regulation, they'll convert to a rental. So I'm going to get into the application materials required for the solicitation. I'm going to briefly look at the CHDO certifications required and then kind of step through the home ownership development application to go a little bit more deeply into each individual area that you'll have to complete as part of the application. We'll go through each one of these items in detail. For the CHDO application, you must provide an official certification of nonprofit status, including the tax exemption ruling from the IRS. Board composition certifications, ensuring that at least 1/3 of the board is low income or serves as a representative of a low income neighborhood. Certification showing that no more than 1/3 of the board member are public officials. And if the CHDO is sponsored by a for-profit, that for-profit cannot appoint more than 1/3 of the board. The CHDO application must also show a history of service to the community by the CHDO, documenting provisions for the inclusion of low-income neighbor input, also showing documentation proving financial capacity and conformance to federal regulations, and ownership and management capacity by submitting resumes, showing homeownership development experience, and most recent payrolls for the CHDO. In the homeownership development application, there's a number of different sections. All these can be found on the application materials and downloaded and in the RFP. The first section will have applicant information, where you must show a list of officers or the board of directors, a copy of articles of incorporation and bylaws, a corporate resolution approving the application, most recent financial audits, contact information for key members, and the tax ID for the CHDO. The next one will be a project description, And that project description needs to list project goals, specifying population served, specifically what is the goal of the project, who it is intended to serve, who it is intended to help, what services are going to be offered, and how that project aligns with the stated goals of the city and the city's constituency that are listed in the Housing Affordability Strategy for Tucson. Please provide the location of the project, listing access to transit, access to employment and amenities. We'll specifically be looking for how the project ties into the community and what kind of opportunity access residents will have who are living there. The structure of the project, specifically what kind of buildings will build, will green building strategies be incorporated, TEP certifications, LEED certifications, etc., and outline access to the site for pedestrians and vehicles. The next section after that is the type of project. And here you'll describe the type of project being proposed, whether it is an acquisition or rehabilitation or a project that incorporates new construction. Those are the only types of projects that are allowed under the solicitations. Again, acquisition, rehabilitation, or new construction of housing for sale to affordable home buyers. And here you'll also describe the type of housing to be acquired, rehabilitated or constructed, whether it's going to be a single family, townhome, a duplex or attached, or a condominium or a manufactured home. The next section is what funding you are requesting. So you'll describe how the funding will be used if awarded, whether it'll be used for hard costs or soft costs that we discussed before, how much funding is being requested, how much of that funding is going to remain as permanent subsidy, what you're going to do with CHDO proceeds that come from sale. And again, the actual amount of funding will be provided, will be determined by underwriting assessment in the project. For the home buyer must contribute a minimum of up to $1,000 per regulation. They may contribute more, and please in your application note that if that project will require a larger investment from a homeowner, so it can be included in the underwriting. Home buyers will require pre-purchase counseling. Every home buyer has to go through that counseling, and it must be from a HUD-approved agency. In your application, please note whether your organization will be providing counseling or whether you're going to hire an approved counseling agency that exists, who that's going to be, and how that agreement will work. The next section of the application is site information. And this is an area for you to be able to show where the site of the project is going to be, if that site has been determined. If the project is on a single site or if it's in multiple locations. If it's in multiple locations, please provide detailed information about those locations. And if it has not been determined, please denote the plan for the acquisition of the site or the determination of the site. Provide the address, legal description, descriptive location, the costs for acquisition, if it's an acquisition, the acreage and lot size information, any existing buildings on site, and if there are any existing structures on the site that are over 45 years old, please provide any survey information you have or background information that you have, or how you are going to deal with the potential for having to deal with historic buildings. The next section is for the environmental information for the area for the site that the project is proposed to be on. If it's in a floodplain, please note that. If it has any geologic hazard areas, please note that. List any historical, archaeological, or cultural resources that could be on the site or in the proximity of the site. And if the site happens to be in an airport environs area or a noise hazard area close to major roads, railway, any other airfields or other noise, and if it is in proximity to any industrial hazards or cleanup areas or sites within proximity to the project. We'll also need to demonstrate a readiness to proceed in the application. So please provide information about existing cash flow, expectation of timeline prior to completion, and we need to demonstrate progress on site control, environmental studies, marketing plans, project entitlements, and also the project design. We also need to demonstrate you have zoning approval and permitting. Zoning to provide evidence of conformity for the site. So if the site has the existing zoning that's underlying that can be used, or if it needs to be rezoned, please outline your plan for the rezoning, the timeline, and your ability to obtain approval from the planning department. Also show which utilities are currently in existence at the site or any utility work that's going to be required for the project so that it will be viable based on the utility structure and infrastructure around it. And also submit your plans for permitting. If you do not currently have an approved permit, we'll list the plan for how you're going to get approval for the site and the building permits, or what your estimated timeline is to obtain those building permits. Understand that that's probably not something that's going to be in hand at the application, but providing information about what the timeline looks like will be helpful. The next section of the application is for plans. Any plans and specifications that currently exist on the project should be submitted with the application. Also listing the estimated time to completion for all of the plans. At a minimum, provide elevations, line drawings, and any available renderings for the conception of the site and the buildings that will be there. New construction has to meet Energy Star guidelines. And for rehab, please attach cost estimates from a qualified licensed contractor that show what it would take to get the existing buildings to a state that is ready to convey to a home buyer. Provide the unit description for each individual unit, including floor plans, measurements, number of bedrooms, baths, materials going to be used, any amenities, and also the estimated cost to the home buyer and the sale price. The next section of the application is the project budget. We're looking for the sources and uses of funding. So in your application, please identify all sources of the development funding, including CHDO proceeds if they are expected. Include firm commitments only. Let us know whether that is a loan or grant, and please provide commitment letters from all lenders. And in the uses, try to be specific to indicate the total budget for each different activity within the project, each individual building, and specify the proposed uses of that funding. Make sure there's a complete housing development cash flow statement, and please provide contact information for all the funding sources involved in the development. Also included in the application should be a market demand analysis for smaller projects or projects with identified home buyers. It can be an abbreviated analysis with identified home buyer, or if the project is every unit in the project is entirely reserved for a special population. If you already have a waiting list and those people have already been identified, the abbreviated analysis is appropriate. Or if the overall project is fewer than 5 units, it could also be an abbreviated analysis. Anything over that needs a full market analysis, and that market analysis should include a description of the market area, the target population, comps in the area for other homes that have been sold, and current waiting lists if there are waiting lists for that housing. Understand that if a full analysis is to be undertaken, that it may be time constricted by the time the application is due. If that's the case and the full market analysis cannot be completed, the award can still be made to a project contingent on a full market analysis being done prior to entering into a written agreement. Also in the application, please include information on the project team, including resumes for all team managers, everybody that's involved in the development, like the project manager, coordinators, fiscal manager, architect, contractor, consultants, any other people who are working on the team are going to be involved in the development. Also in the application, please include the attachments that are listed in the application that are required. Most of that documentation we've talked about throughout the presentation, including site information for proposed sites, deed and title demonstrating site control, contract or option for purchase of the land or the structures being proposed, documentation showing zoning approval from the planning department, the architectural plans and specifications, like we previously discussed, line drawings and elevations, commitment letters from funding sources, market demand analysis narrative, and resumes for the project team. Your applications will be evaluated based on the criteria laid out in the RFP. Starts on page 12. That evaluation criteria relates directly to the application contents. So by being thorough and completely and fully answering all questions and providing all attachments in the application, you will be meeting the criteria for evaluation. And again, those projects that are aligned with the goals of the housing affordability strategy for Tucson may be prioritized for funding as they are aligned with the city's goals. Here's the timeline for the solicitation. The RFP was released on the 28th. Q&A will be posted to our website every Monday. So any questions that we receive throughout the week, the answers to those will be posted every Monday. Pre-proposal conference is today. Applications will be due by January 31st. And award announcements will be made on or before March 8th of 2023. The Q&A, like we just discussed, if anyone has any questions, please post them to the Q&A function of Zoom right now, and we'll attempt to answer those. Any other questions can be emailed to hcdgrants@tucsonaz.gov, and they'll be posted online every Monday. And please visit the website for any more information that you may need. And at this time, if anybody has questions, please put them in the Q&A and we'll make an effort to answer those. And thanks everybody for being here. And as I'm not seeing any questions currently, we'll hang out for about 5 minutes or so. If anyone has questions. And also throughout the application process, if technical assistance is required, you can contact me or Ray. And our email's in the slide deck, and we'll get the slide deck up to the website shortly.